Hello, everyone. Thank you. So nice to see so many people today interested in learning more about succulents. These are fantastic plants that I personally fell in love. So I'm a landscape designer that have worked in many different states in the US. And when I first moved to California, I was invited to do a display for at the Del Mar Fair. I'm talking to you from Del Mar, California, and we have a show called the Home Spring and Garden. It wasn't the Del Mar Fair; it was the Spring and Home and Garden. And there is a nursery in town that needed somebody to do a display for them. And I drove up to the nursery. I have recently arrived here. I was coming from Dallas, Texas, and prior to that, I had a business doing perennial gardens in the East Coast. So I knew very little about succulents at that time. And so I visited the nursery and went to see what they had. That nursery specializes in three things: antique roses, daylilies, and succulents. And I remember it was a rainy day and there was nobody at the nursery. So I protected myself from the rain, and I kept driving to different spots in the nursery to look at their material to see what I was going to use. And I was fascinated and taken by these plants. They have such a diversity in foliage, shape, and color. And it wasn't flower, it was just the foliage. And I was taken back. And I think that was my first experiencing of falling in love with that group of plant material. So that's how I personally fell in love with succulents myself. So today, for this class, we are going to talk about succulents, and I have divided the class in 6 sections. So we're going to first remember the basics, and then we're going to cover what are succulents, and then what succulents need to grow well. Then I'll give you some examples of designing with succulents. And then we're gonna look at succulents used in pots. And then we will review some inspirational gardens that I have personally visited. For this presentation, I will be showing examples of my own design. And then I will be showing also designs of a wonderful friend of mine and designer from LA. Her name is Johanna Wolcott. And then I will also look at examples of work from Linda Estrin. So those are the gardens that we're going to be looking today. So let's start with remembering the basics. So let's look at a conventional landscape, which is on the left. So a conventional landscape, you will see a lot of impermeable surfaces. And the whole idea here is to hold on to water in our property, because we don't have a lot of water on the West Coast. This is a Mediterranean climate where we only get water during the winter time. And so when it rains, it's important for us to hold on to water because it's such a precious thing that we have. We don't have a lot of it. And the first 1 inch of rain carries a lot of pollutants and dirt that we collect on our roofs and our driveways. So if you look at conventional landscape, the idea was always to get rid of the water. As soon as it rained, it went down the downspouts and we want to get rid of it. So we have impermeable surfaces, usually in an angle to send the water to the drains on the street. Because compacted soil, because we never understood that we need to take care of our soil. And then what happens with that is that our aquifer gets depleted. On the watershed-wise landscape, we take care of our soils. We add compost to create a living soil. And a living soil is a sponge. And the sponge has the ability to hold on to water. We replace the impermeable surfaces with permeable paving. We cover the soil with mulch because mulch slows down the movement of water. It also doesn't allow the rain to compact the soil. And so mulch is a great way to finish the gardens. We use plants that are appropriate for our climate. Like I said, the Mediterranean climate. There are 5 Mediterranean climates in the world, and we can borrow from all these 5 different regions. And we contour the land. And what do I mean by that? We create ways to slow down the water so water has time to percolate into the soil. And if irrigation is needed, which usually is because we go for 9 months without any rain, we should use a inline irrigation or high efficiency irrigation. So let's look at this landscape that I created. These clients wanted to add a room and a covered patio. And so what I did for them, notice on the left, the next door neighbor is much below them. And if I had not created or contoured the land to create this dry creek bed, the water will just run. Notice the rain chains on both sides of the roof. So now the water comes down on the rain chain, which acts as double beauty. It slows down the movement of water as it is coming down and allow you to see the water. So this is this is a before, right after we finish installing, where we contoured the land to create this dry creek bed. And this is a few months later. And notice how the plants already are growing and hugging the sides of this dry creek bed. And for this project, I use not just succulents, but some Mediterranean plants that are adapted to this climate. The only place that succulents will not be a good choice would be inside the dry creek bed, because as we will learn and talk about, succulents don't like to have wet feet, especially during the winter time. So with the dry creek bed, it will capture the water, it will slow down the movement of the water, and it will allow the water to percolate and to permeate into the soil. And now if the dry creek bed was done well, that soil below the rocks have the ability, like I said, is like a sponge, it acts like a sponge to hold on to the water. So now let's look at what are succulents. So succulents are plants that have been adapted to live in places with semi-arid climates or even deserts. And what they did, they developed very thick leaves, thick stems, and thick trunks. So it's a very large family, and it includes cacti. Cacti is a kind of succulents, and they usually have either no leaves or very small leaves, and they hold on to water, mostly on their stems. And then we have succulents that store water mainly on the leaves, like you see on the right-hand side. This is an aloe, and look at the leaves, how thick they are. The word succulent derives from the Latin word succus, meaning juicy or sap. And one thing that all succulents need is good drainage. They don't like to have wet feet, especially during the winter time, and we will talk about that. So cacti versus succulents. So cactus denotes the botanical family, and they often have spines. This is the barrel cactus native to Mexico, and they come from a very wide cacti. It's a very large family, and they come in many shapes, not always round like that. You can find succulents almost everywhere on the planet, except for the North Pole and the Antarctica. And why is that? Because succulents cannot freeze or tolerate frost for very long because they hold on to a lot of water on their stems or on their leaves. Whenever we freeze water, water expands. And if the freeze stays, it will just burst the cells inside the leaves, and the plant looks like it melted. That's exactly how it looks. Couple of years ago, San Diego had a frost that lasted a little bit too long, and all the agaves attenuatas look like they have melted, just like ice cream. Some agaves and cacti can survive freezing, but like I said, they cannot be a very long freezing period. And then another thing that really kills succulents are wet feet during the winter time. They just don't like that. California is home to close to 100 succulents native to the state, and many of them live in coastal environments. Why? Because the temperatures is more, there's not a lot of change in temperatures, and succulents love that. Well, it's easy to see why I fell in love with succulents. Look at this variety of shapes and colors and textures. Like there's so much difference in the way we can combine all these colors. It's just so fantastic. Also pay attention that none of them have flowers. These are what you see, these different colors, they don't come from flowers. They come from the foliage of the plant. And that guarantees a garden that will look good all year round. This is a group of plants called aeoniums. And aeoniums, like some other succulents, they come in a variety of colors. Like the sick pinwheel, it's red. Zorkop is also very red and dark. The salad bowl have huge, very large rosettes. And Haworthii is the aeonium that is variegated, which is a very cool thing. There are not a lot of variegated succulents, so that's a nice one. Echeverias are fantastic. They come in so many different shapes and colors, and they usually change their colors according to the stress of temperature, meaning very hot or very cold. But these ones are the colors that they come. So look at the pearl of Nuremberg at the bottom, or the Peacockii that creates a lot of pops. Some echeverias really like to pop, and the Peacockii is one of them. So allow space when you use them in your gardens or in your pots. The hands and cheeks, like they are well known, they also have this ability to create pups at their bottom, and they come in a variety of colors and shapes, from the reds to the chartreuse to the bluish, and how about this green and with red tips? It's just like it's a feast to the eye. The agaves are an important group of succulents. The agave americana, which comes from Mexico originally, and it has a common name of the century plant. And that is, it was thought that this plant would only bloom every 100 years. That is not true. They do bloom maybe in 10 years. And once an agave blooms, they die because agaves are monocarpic, and every monocarpic plant, once it blooms, it completes its life cycle. It will create pups, but the mother plant will die. On the right-hand side, you see Agave desmentiana variegata, which is also very, very striking and beautiful. And this one is popping at the bottom. You can see that. And what do you think about Agave filamentosa, which has these threads all over the leaves? These are a group of plants which I love it. They are called mangaves, and mangaves is a cross between agaves and manfredas. So the agaves give that structure on the leaves, and the manfredas usually have a lot of variety or variegation on the leaves. So when they cross these two, they create this group of called mangavis. And interesting enough, mangavis are not monocarpic, so they will not die after they bloom. And that is, to me, a very interesting thing, knowing that one of the parents, the agave, are monocarpic. So as you can see, the purple people eater, which I love these names, they are so creative, has this purplish color, and the snow leopard has this beautiful white variegation. And notice that the tips is becoming a little bit kind of purplish red or pink. That is because it's stress. Something stressed that plant. And like I said, what usually stress succulents is either cold or a lot of sun, or even a little bit of drought that would also stress the plant. The lavender lady has a beautiful, striking shape to it. So these are very, if you're not, if you don't know this group of plants, I highly recommend you look into them. The aloes, a lot of people know about the medicine aloe, the aloe vera, which is on the left here. They bloom in yellow. Most aloes, they bloom in orange, but aloe vera blooms in yellow. That is the only, aloe vera is the only plant in this very large group of plants that have medicinal properties. The other ones don't have. The aloe cameronii I use because of these striking colors in the wintertime. They're reddish, is brought by the cold weather. And aloe breviata, you will see one of the pictures later on where they pop to create a massive ground cover. So these are very, very cool plants with a lot of structure on their leaves. The cactus, like I said, they have thorns, but they come in a variety of shape. Look at the echinocactus that we looked before, the golden barrel on the left hand side, compared to the opuntia. The pintarita is a cultivar. Notice that it has yellow flowers. This purplish color, again, is brought up by stress, by usually cold during the winter time. And the Mexican fence post cactus do have thorns along these little white edges, but they are very minute. And people don't usually see it, but you don't want to touch it. And so look at the variety of shapes that they come in. So now that we know what succulents are, and we have talked about the basics, about what we need to do to have a water-wise garden, now let's look at the growing conditions that succulents need. So like I said, succulents need perfect drainage. That is my own backyard in Del Mar, and I had a hill when I moved into this property. And I knew exactly what I wanted to plant on the hill. because the hills allow for very good drainage. And and you can see the different colors because the plants are arranged on a surface that is not straight, is going up. You can now notice the different shapes, the different colors, the different textures that I used here. Does that mean that if you have a flat yard, you cannot grow succulents? No, you can grow succulents. You just need to create contours and plant the succulents at the higher point because you want to maintain good drainage. And if you, and once everything is planted straight, you don't notice that. Large succulents can be used as focal points. As you can see in this garden, I use this agave as a focal point for this garden. Notice that I use the different colors of sedum and senecio just to make the agave pop. And so succulents are good for that. And this will look good all year round because there's no flowers. So every day of the year, this garden will look like this. And that when you live in a climate where we have no downside to for seasons, there's no winter and the garden gets covered by snow, it's important to think how the garden looks in every season. Rain chains are a great way to direct water, as you saw in that dry creek bed that I showed you before. They slow down the movement of water and they allow you to see and listen to the water, which is a very cool thing to do during a rainy day. So this is the entrance to my subdivision, and this is bordered by two streets and has no irrigation. Uh, the area has a lot of grown eucalyptus, and because of that, I chose succulents to create the drama, to call attention to the sign of Rancho del Mar, which is the name of the subdivision. These plants receive water, they are hand watered once a week, and they have been doing this beautiful thing that succulents can do because of their shape and their texture. So this is a project that I was called for to remove the lawn of this small house in San Diego. I explained to the homeowner that we needed to kill the grass, and I explained to her the way I wanted her to kill the grass. And I wanted her to scalp her grass first, and then cover the whole entire grass with 1 inch of compost, very good compost. Then cover that compost with cardboard, making sure that she first removed first 6 inches of lawn all around the hard surfaces, and then covering everything with the cardboard and making sure to overlap the ends of the cardboard and use staples to hold the cardboard in place. Then cover the entire surface with 3 inches of mulch and water in. We need to make sure that the cardboard is well watered, and just wait 6 to 9 months. What are we doing? We are creating good spongy soil, good live soil. And to the right is what you see after it was planted with succulents. Look at the drama, look how interesting it is, much more interesting than just two patches of grass. So I would like to go over some assumptions that people have about succulents. And some of them are true and some of them are false. So let's read over each one. The first assumptions is that if you have less than ideal soil, uh, um, you can only grow succulents if you have sandy soil. That's not true. We talked about that. If you create elevations to guarantee that you have good percolation of water, you can have succulents. Even with, if you have clay, you can still have succulents. Succulents add year-round interest to your garden. That is very true. A succulent garden will look good all year round because of the shapes and the color. It will not have a downside. Succulents gardens should have gravel mulch. Not true at all. Succulent plants love to have a nice top dressing of mulch on top. So that is not true. And if you do use gravel as the mulch, if that's the look that you're after, you will need to make sure to fertilize your succulents. Succulents need, and they are very hungry for nitrogen, something that our soils kind of lack a little bit. And so you will need to make sure that you fertilize your succulents with nitrogen every once in a while. Let's talk about more assumptions. They don't need any supplemental water. That's not true. Succulents are adapted to live long periods without water, but they still show signs of desiccation when they receive no water at all. They need a minimum amount of water to look good. And when you see your succulents with shriveled up leaves, and you know that they really need, they are totally desiccated. All succulents need good drainage. So true. We already talked about that, and that's the reason to create contour in your gardens. That another assumption is that they can only live in full sun. Not true. Some succulents look beautiful in half shade or even shade, depending on where you live. Some succulents that can take full sun on the coast might even look better in half shade inland. So just knowing your plants and knowing where they are going to be planted is very important. As you can see, this is a narrow area on the side of the house in half shade situation. So now let's talk about designing with them. How are we going to use them in our gardens? So this is a front yard that I did several years ago. They had lawn, and the homeowners were looking to get rid of the lawn in the front yard and the backyard. So what I did, we started by removing the lawn and adding these oversized pour-in-place concrete steps that will take people from the sidewalk on the left all the way to the front gate. And I made sure to use the cacti against the wall for it creates a focal point. It tells people where to go, but it also, at night, with the light, it creates a silhouette against the wall. I used a lot of different succulents with a lot of different textures and colors to create the interest. So this garden will look good all year round. Succulents are also great for small spaces to be grouped in little areas and next to a boulder or next to a corner patio. Just look at the variety here. And they are almost like a jewel box with different interests. You feel like you want to stop and just look. Here, the agave creates a focal point and draw your eyes to the small bird bath. Notice the small barrel cactus next to the rocks. Also, make sure to allow space for the succulents to grow. It's always a good idea to read how wide the plant will get, how big the plant will get for you to make changes in your plants and deciding where to plant them. So this is my previous house in Carmel Valley. And I don't know if you can see, there was an existing wall because there's a difference in elevation between the sidewalk and the entrance to the house. And so what I did, and the original entrance to the house was off the driveway. So this retaining wall would go all the way to the driveway, which did not create um, a nice entrance. So instead, I placed the entrance in line with the big window of the house. I cut the existing retaining wall and I made a 90-degree angle. That's what you see coming all the way to the sidewalk. And I use prefab concrete steps to create the steps and stepping stones at the top. And on the other side of the steps, I created another retaining wall because I needed to retain the soil with a shorter wall on this side of the steps. I separated the steps from the wall because that allows me to plant in that small space and therefore create interest in each step that you take going up. In this picture, the aloes are all in bloom, and that's what you see in here. I use orange for the retaining wall because I wanted to create a contrast with the plants and with the yellow color of the house. And the agave on the top and at the bottom here is really used to hug on the steps. So it was a very striking entrance to the house. I told you that succulents look great in this little space, and that's what you see there. Now the aloe is not in bloom, so that is the aloe that before was in bloom. So Senecio, aloe, these are great plants to be put on little spaces like that. And that is the top level when you arrive. I use Diamondia in between the steps, and look at the big agave there, almost like a sculpture with Sinister at the bottom, hugging at the bottom. Succulents also look great. This is a real sculpture that was in front of the front door with succulents at the bottom to anchor the sculpture in the garden. And the big agave again, with Sinistro at the bottom, on the top of the steps. And this is the view from the street with the Desilirium on the right. It looks like an explosion with a lot of different texture and colors. And I think the only flowers that you see here are the aloe and the bougainville against the garage door. But other than that, all the colors that you see, they all come from the foliage. And that guarantees a garden that looks good all year round. So now we're gonna look at some pictures of gardens that Johanna designed. Johanna is a very talented designer, and she loves to combine succulents with Mediterranean plants. And here she used this Aloe Hercules as a focal point. It just draws your eyes from this magnificent shape. And it is very striking to have something like that. It acts like I told you, it acts like a sculpture in the garden. This aloe is like, it creates drama in the garden. The reds that you see at the tips is also created from the cold weather. And that is another interesting thing because some people may think, oh, but a succulent garden looks the same all year round. No, it doesn't, because it will change the colors depending on the weather, cold, hot. So those are the very subtle, but very beautiful. And you should also account for that when you're combining the plants. Was a project that she worked on this hill in an area that is very prone to fire. And she liked to use succulents because succulents have their foliage filled with water. And it's a great plant to reduce the flammability of plant material. Whenever you have a plant that is full of water on the leaves, there's not a lot of dry things to catch on fire. So, and the hill becomes a tapestry of colors and shapes. And look at this magnificent arrangement of colors with the aloe cameronii here hugging the rock with being so red because it's probably the end of the winter. And with the purples and the agaves at the back, it's just so colorful that is you just have to stop to take it in. It's just um, a jewel box. You saw this plant used in my front yard. It's called Desilirium longissimum. And these needles, they move with the breeze. And it can kind of see through them. So it's a very cool thing. They look beautiful if you light them at night. They look like a fireworks. And they are very large, so make sure to allow enough space. And they are not one of the most pleasant plants for you to touch it. So don't put next to your walkway, but make sure to put on a place. To me, it looks like a sculpture. It's like having a sculpture in your garden that is alive. We talked about the Echeverias. This one is so cool because it develops this pink color during the winter time, and it has these warts. So it's a very, very interesting plant. And when you combine with other succulents that have more blue, that picks up the blue from the bottom, from the middle of this plant, it's a wonderful combination. And how about the reds in this Echeveria? It's called Echeveria Crimson Tide. They have very red edges during the winter when it's cold and they are stressed out, and they look beautiful in arrangements. You can use them in pots or you can use them in the garden. And the blues are a great color to be combining. In the left-hand side, Johanna combined three different plants. They have about the same color leaves, but total different shape of leaves. And the agave in the front, the aloe in the middle with the flowers, and the desilirium in the background. They all have, it's the same color, but the shape just plays with your eyes. It's just so beautiful. And what do you think of this blue agave with the red edging? It's just so striking. Like it could be a painting. It's it allows for a lot of variety in the garden. The agave blue flame, there's something that is so interesting. Notice the marking that it leaves on each leaf as it opens up. Is where the previous leaf was touching, it just leaves an imprint on the leaf. So they are amazing. They are kind of green blue, and they have this beautiful shape where they just twist to the top with a very sharp tip. So if this is in a place where you think kids are going to be walking by, older people, it's very close to a walkway, then I would suggest you just nipping with your garden shears, just cut the point because it can be very, very sharp. Also make sure to know the size of things when you plant succulents around maybe a sculpture, like in here, you see how it started, this head of the Buddha on the left, and as the sinusu and the aloe grew, it's just engulfing the whole sculpture. So make sure to know the size of the plants that you are crowding or planting around something next to a focal point. Also, uh, but if that happens, it's very easy to deal with it. Succulents, you can cut succulents, just trim them, don't be afraid. And once you have a succulent garden, you will always have succulents to give it to friends, to family, to neighbors, because every single piece of the succulent, if you stick it in the ground, it will grow. Just let it callus for a few days and just plant it in the ground, water it in, and then forget about it. We talked about this aloe brevifolia before, and I told you I was going to show you a picture where it created this solid ground cover. Notice how here it just created this beautiful edge along this concrete edge. And it's an aloe that pops like crazy, a lot of babies. And it gets crowded, but it's so beautiful when it's growing like that. And at the bottom, you will see the blue of the sinusu spilling over the aloe plicatilis. It's just blue is a very crazy color in nature because there's not a blue in foliage. Succulents have blue foliage, but it's very unusual. Usually foliage is green. So whenever you have a chance to have a plant that have blue foliage, is always a great opportunity to create combinations because they are very striking. And this red from this aloe, again, aloes have this tendency whenever it's is exposed to cold, it develops these beautiful colors. And it's a great way to create a almost different garden during the winter and during the summer, because once the temperature warms up, it will lose this red and go back to green. So this aloe Dorothea has this ability, like many other aloes, have this ability to color when it's stressed out during the winter time. And I told you about variegation. Aeonium sunburst has variegation, and notice that the young growth comes up even different, comes up yellow, and then we'll start developing more the green. So it's a fun plant to try and to mix with other plants. Here it's mixed with an agave and aloe. It's just so striking to have this variegation in the garden. Here she mixed the aloes with the blue sinusu to create this striking, and it will, as now we know, during the winter is going to be even the combination is going to be more intense when this aloe becomes red because of the cold weather. And the sinusu will be very blue. So the contrast between the two is just amazing. And then when the aloe blooms in orange, and orange and blue becomes a beautiful, beautiful combination. Dahlias are native to California, and they grow on very little soil. They like to be very dry. You can even use, if you have a rock wall and you have little tiny spaces, you can pluck them in there and they will grow on a vertical wall, happy as can be. And this variety has this white foliage. It's almost like a ghost plant, and they are very striking. Graptovaria, it's a great plant. It has these colors of mauve and beige. They are great to combine with things. They are very easy to combine with other plants. And here, as you notice, the pot was broken, and Johanna just put little pieces of it, and Graptovaria just spilled out and created these arrangements, almost like it was like water running out of the pot. But the pot, notice, it was broken. You could not do that with other plants, but you can do that with succulents. This is Johanna's own backyard, and she created these large point place steps and used the small succulents in between the steps. Notice the little area. That area is not more than 4 inches, and she could use echeverias and different little plants in there. And she used the succulents. As you grow up, you go up the stairs, you have these different things that will call your attention. And beautiful arrangement of plants. She combined succulents with some Mediterranean plants in here too. So it's a beautiful plant to border steps on a hillside. Like we said, like I said, I'm sorry, succulents mix very well with perennials and Mediterranean plants. This is a Nepeta, Walker's Law, which is a low Nepeta. The common name is catmint, and catmint mix very well with succulents because they have the same need for water, very low water. They're both very low water. And that is the beauty of knowing what plants can you mix. When you mix plants, the first thing that you need to consider is their water use. You cannot put a plant that is very high water use next to a plant that is very low water use, because one of them is going to be very unhappy. And so the idea is for you to know the water needs of each plant and combine them. And so Nepeta, Worker's Law, is a great combination with succulents. And look at the striking combination of colors here between the Echeveria, the Senecio, the agave in the background, and the salvia and ornamental grass with in front of these reused concrete wall. Again, Johanna's backyard, a steep hill where she combines the succulents with aloes and native plants. So beautiful texture combination. Even the dog loves to walk on and observe the differences that she created in this garden. Agave desmentiana here with the yellow edges. Look at the little tip. It curves and then it goes up with the Senecio and the Euphorbia. The yellow one that is in bloom is an Euphorbia. Look at how beautiful. I'm sorry. The green makes the yellow pop up in here. And it's just a beautiful combination. And notice that she only has 3 plants here, but it's so striking. And I think that's also a secret of having great succulent gardens, is to not use maybe use less, but in more quantity. So it is so striking when you see these combinations. Here she used the aloe David variety against the wall in this pot. And even when it's here, it is in bloom with the orange flower, which is very, very striking. But even when it's not in bloom, it's still very striking to have that right next to a front door. And the column on the right gets echo on the flower. And it's just a very striking way of using succulents. Bucraea foetida mediopicta is this plant on the left-hand side with the white and the green. That's a very tropical succulent. It's one of these plants that don't like frost. It comes from warm regions in the world, but it's very nice and soft and it's very striking, and it likes to grow in half shade. So it's a great way to bring light to shady spots. And here I use right next to the sidewalk. It's just beautiful. And she repeats that along the walkway, so it carries your eyes as you walk down the hill. I love this aloe. Aloe bracteosa is in here is used under a Arctostaphylos Howard McMinn, which is a native plant for us in California. And so here you see that they also combine very well with natives that need very little water. This aloe is very cool because it has all the leaves curved and they are very soft leaves. So it's just a nice plant. Is very interesting shape. This is a design by Linda Estrin, and in here she removed lawn and she replaced the lawn with this mixture of succulents and diamondia. It's so much better than a lawn. It's much more interesting. You feel like walking through just to see the little details in each corner. Another Linda Ashton's design, a very stunning combination with greens. Notice that most of the plants here are green, um, with a little bit of red of aeonium there. But most of the plants are green, all the flowers. And here, Linda used that aloe as a focal point to bring your eyes to the water basin. And she combines the succulents with perennials that come from the Mediterranean region. And the water, the blue pot that became a fountain. And it's just a very striking use of color and succulents in a garden. Opuntias are an interesting group of plants of cacti. They have these flowers, which are very beautiful. They come in pink and white and yellow and orange, and they also produce fruits. They are edible. So it's some people like to call them Mickey Mouse plant because they look like the 2 ears of the Mickey Mouse. But that's and there are a lot of cultivars, and I that's just a very striking succulent that you can use in full sun, difficult areas, dry areas, hillsides, Opuntia egelmanii. They are called desert prickly pear. Tough in heat, and they can take frost. They are more adapted to a frost that will not stay for very long, but they can take frost. So now let's look at succulents in pots. So this is Linda Estrin again, and she loves to combine different succulents in pots. And we are going to look at some combinations. She is really a master of combining succulents to create these interesting and creative pots. And this is actually, none of these plants are planted. Johanna was doing some cuttings in the garden, and she stuck them all in this pot. Then no water, just made a nice arrangement. I told you when you make cuttings in succulents, you need to let them callus, dry up. So she just arranged them in this pot in a very nice and organic way. Use it, and then after a few weeks, she went ahead and planted them in the ground. But this is just to give you an example that you can, if you have succulents in your garden, you can create arrangements for your table without using any water, without being concerned of spilling the water all over your tablecloth. Just plug them inside the pot and they will look beautiful for at least 2 weeks. Another example of succulents used in small spaces, in this case, in between the step and the wall, and a nice combination of different echeverias to create the impact as you go up the steps. And here are succulents arranged in this faux bois vase, and where she used the Zorkop aeonium with a senecio, and it's just so striking. And an aloe, a piece of aloe, again, maybe they don't even have soil. In this case, they do have soil, but she could have just plugged them in there and just for a party, and then plant them afterwards. And here are pots made out of a pumpkin. Good thing to do for Halloween, for Thanksgivings. Just get a pumpkin, carve a little piece out, fill with soil, and just arrange the succulents in there. And then after a while, you just get them out and plant them in your garden. But it makes for striking arrangements for the center of the table. How about these beautiful pots for the entrance of the garden? How beautiful. And knowing your plants, now that you know that they also like to grow in half shade, maybe you have a half shade space in your garden that you can put a pot with succulents inside. But they can also be in full sun. And then knowing your plants, you can create different and creative arrangements for full sun, for pots that are in full sun. These are both from Linda Estrin again. Look how beautiful. Also notice that she brings the color of the pot into the plant material, or the plant material reflects the color of the pot. That is so important. So I think that's a great way to, when you're choosing your plant material that you're gonna put inside a pot, make sure to have the pot with you so you can put the succulents, different succulents next to the ceramic and see which one combines well. I think there needs to have a dialogue between the color of the foliage and the color of your ceramic bowl. More pots, beautiful arrangements, beautiful variety of color. It's hard to beat the variety of colors of succulents. It's just so incredible. Nature at its best. And little niches on the step. Then Diester loves to just create these little jewel boxes, arrangements in different small spaces. So where do we draw inspiration? Where do we go for inspirations and resources? I created a list here. So Huntington Garden in Pasadena is a wonderful place. Taft Garden in Ohio, Lotus Land in Montecito, Los Angeles Arboretum, Descanso Gardens in Los Angeles, Ruth Bancroft Garden in Walnut Creek, University of California Botanical Garden in Berkeley, and Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix. You will see plants full grown that will just amaze you, like this agave franzonii on your right-hand side. Well, Lotus Land is probably one of my best gardens, and if you have never been there, I highly recommend that you make a reservation and go and visit. You can only visit with a tour guide. They have guides in there, so you have to reserve. And Ghana fell in love with succulents when nobody was using them. She was an opera singer and bought this house in California and started collecting succulents and planting them in her garden. She had a special eye to arrange them and to group them. As you can see here in this collection of barrel cactus and the aloe, it's just so amazing. Um, you will see things that probably will not see anywhere else. So I highly recommend. She had a flair of arranging them in pots or arranging them by color. I will never forget the blue garden that she has there. It's just so incredible. This Pachypodium. Pachypodium is native to Madagascar. It's kind of rare and it has this very funky shape and these beautiful white flowers. So, like I said, when she started collecting them, nobody was talking about succulents or doing succulent gardens. And she was probably one of the first ones. And that's why this garden is so special. So I highly recommend you go visit. Huntington Botanical Garden is another one that they have a collection of succulents that is equal to none. It's beautiful here on this hill. They combine aloe with ornamental grasses for this striking combination, but they have so many succulents and it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Take your kids, take your grandkids and go visit it because I highly recommend. You don't need to make reservations because you can visit at your leisure. And they also have a Japanese garden, they have a rose garden, they have a kids playground, they have a gorgeous library. So it's really a joy to the eye, but in a great way to see combinations of succulents. Like in this one, Echinocactus grusini mixed with agave prairieii. And you will walk for hours among these beauties and be amazed by their shapes and the colors and the striking form is it's just a playground for the eyes. You will probably see full-grown agaves that is hard. Sometimes it's hard to find them. So it's always good to see them as full-grown in case you are lucky to find some of them in a nursery close to your house. Look at this silver torch in the back. What gives this white color is these are hairs. And they are not really hairs, but they are really thorns, the spines. And if they get inside your finger, it's just so painful to remove them. but it's so much fun to see them arranged in here in such large groups. It's highly recommended. And the impact when you use several of them, which is something that I should say, succulents look best when you use more than one. Multiple threes, they look great because you want to create the impact. And sometimes you don't need all three. Look at these pictures. Not all the barrel cactus are grouped together, but there is a separation, putting an agave in between, and but it's just a continuation for the eye. Is so important. So when you're doing a succulent garden, make sure to use more than one. Tapped garden and nature preserved in Ojai, you also need to reserve. Only 25 people are allowed per day. It is a reservation, so you do need to reserve, and it's a great collection. It started with a man, and that is his private collection of succulents. Again, magnificent. I have never been, but I highly recommend. I'm waiting for my opportunity to go visit him. He has mature species and just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. More pictures of the tapped garden. And this concludes our class. Thank you very much for coming today, for making time to come and learn about this magnificent group of plants. One that I fell in love when I first arrived, and I'm still in awe of their variety and their different shapes. Thank you very much.